I'm Danica Lorer. I'm here in Treaty 6 territory. It's a place where people have gathered to listen and tell stories since time immemorial. And I'm so grateful today to be sharing a little bit about stories and how they come into my life. I'm grateful to the Saskatchewan Library Association and to SaskTel for making this possible. So when I start to think about stories, I start to think about how important our imaginations are. And so I like to start with just a little bit of an imagination stretch. So I hope you join me and get involved in what we're doing today. Take a little bit of a risk sometimes. We're going to be using our memories and our imaginations. So we're just going to start to pay attention to where you are. And I am in a beautiful place in Saskatoon, and it doesn't even look like we're in the city, but we're right in the center of it. And what I want you to do is I want you to start to stretch your body. Stretch up as far as you can. Reach for the sky. Maybe you can reach into those clouds and that sun where the birds are singing. And then I want you to close your eyes really tight and reach with your imagination. Reach up farther than you've ever reached before. Reach up to the clouds, reach up into space. And then we're going to give it just a little bit of a shake. Shake it out. Sometimes I get a little ache when I reach for so long. And then I want you to stretch yourself again, but this time we're going to roll ourselves as small as we can be. And I want you to feel the earth beneath you. Maybe there are rocks, maybe the sand is wet, or you're somewhere where you have a nice soft carpet or some nice hard floors. Just touch the earth where you're at. And then I want you to close your eyes really tight and roll into a tiny little ball and imagine that you are as small as a baseball. Roll up even tighter and imagine that you are as small as a mouse, and then as small as a ladybug. And then we're going to shake ourselves out again. We're going to roll ourselves up. Now I want you to stretch out as wide as you can stretch. Reach out your feet, reach out your fingertips. And we're going to stretch, stretch, stretch. I want to see if I can stretch all the way across this beautiful river. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Now close your eyes and imagine. Imagine that you can stretch across and touch trees on the banks of each side. Reach out and imagine that you can touch one end of the city to the next. And then we're going to stretch out all the way across Saskatchewan, all the way across Treaty 6 territory. We're going to stretch, stretch, stretch all the way across this nation, all the way from ocean to ocean, stretch all the way around the world. And the world can always use a great big hug. All right, so we're warmed up, our imaginations are nice and working. I want you to just take another minute to just pay attention to what's going on around you. And I'm standing in one of my very favorite places, and I can see green grass and big trees and white and gray clouds and beautiful blue water. I can hear the birds, and I can hear the wind through the trees. I can smell the water and the sand. I can smell wild roses blooming. I can touch that wet sand. I can feel the bark on the trees. I can feel that warm sunshine on my palms. And if it was just a couple of weeks ago, I could taste fresh asparagus on the trail. And in a few weeks from now, we'll have handfuls of nice, juicy Saskatoon berries. Now, I love all of these things. Some are big and some are very, very small. But it doesn't take much to get a story. Now, when I was very small, I would go visit my grandma. And my grandma's kitchen had all sorts of wonderful things to experience. You could take a deep breath and you could smell fresh bread baking. And the tastes were fantastic. She made wonderful salty soups and beautiful buns and delicious cookies with raisins or chocolate chips. And one of the things I remember playing with when I was a child was a great big jar of buttons. And that jar of buttons was something fun that you could shake and you could listen to it, or you could pour all the buttons out on the table and pick them up one by one, and Grandma had a story for every single button. Nothing went to waste. She didn't throw things away. So if there was an old shirt, sometimes the material would get so old and you could almost feel right through it. She would still keep it and use it to maybe make stuffing for a toy, or it could be a rag. And the buttons went into the button jar. Some of the buttons were sparkly and they were from fancy dresses, or great big brown buttons that were covered in leather, that were part of great big coats that had been worn by her brothers and her sisters and herself, and then her own sons and daughters. And so that jar of buttons was like magic. And she taught me something really special to do with a button. And I don't know if you can see that, but I have a button in my hand, a great big button. And you could think of it, maybe it would be a nice necklace. I could wear it. But this isn't a necklace. This is a little toy. And something that my grandmother showed me how to do when I was little. And it's very simple. It isn't fancy like a video game, but it's almost like a fidget spinner. And it just takes a button and a little piece of string. And if you can listen, you can hear that. Well, my grandma, she didn't have lots of toys. She didn't have stacks of books, trucks, teddy bears, and dolls. But she had everything to make her heart sing. She had a button on a string, zing, zing, zing. Well, my grandma, she didn't have lots of toys. She didn't have stacks of books, trucks, teddy bears, and dolls. But she had everything to make her heart sing. She had a button on a string, zing, zing, zing. I love playing with these. Sometimes they get a little worn out though. And I've been in situations where I've been in a library and the string has broken and the button starts to fly through the air and I have to grab it quick out of the air before it accidentally hits somebody in the head. But that's something very small. And it started out with just a button and a piece of string. But now it's not only a button and a piece of string, it's a toy. And that song is true. My grandmother didn't have lots of dolls and trucks and books, not the piles of stuffed animals that we have in some of our houses. They would make toys out of pieces of paper and scraps of material and buttons. And I don't only have a toy. I have a story, a memory of my grandmother, and I have a song. And it's just a little song, but it's something I made up. And I'm always really happy to share it with you. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about all the wonderful things that I've learned in libraries. Now you can probably guess, one of the first things that I learned in a library was stories. And I remember borrowing books from the library. My very favorite book was Where the Wild Things Are. And so I would take that book out and I read it. Well, first, my mom had to read it to me, and then my dad, and then my grandma, and my Uncle Mark. Everybody got sick of reading it, so I had to learn to read all by myself. And all those words got stuck in my head. So now I have that story wherever I go. I found stories from around the world that I can remember and tell. And then I learned how to do some things that helped me to have fun with other people. One of the things that was really fun for me to learn was how to do face painting. And I haven't been able to face paint anybody for more than a year because I can't get that close to people. But I found this mask and I started to paint it like a face painting. And so this painting is like the butterfly that I might paint on somebody's face. And it gives me some time to practice and to try out some new ideas on masks until I can get to do some face painting again. But it's something that I learned about from a book that I borrowed from the library. So I think about stories all the time, and I'm always looking for ideas. And the ideas are everywhere, all around us. And it doesn't matter if you're inside or outside. Now, you don't need a big idea to grow a big story. Sometimes all you need is 1 or 2 words. And so I do these activities sometimes where I write words on pieces of paper or beads or anything at all. And then I just randomly choose and try to make up a story. And so I'm going to tell you a story now that started with just 2 words. And at the end of it, maybe you can guess what those 2 words are. It was Zimmer's birthday, and Zimmer woke up early and she stretched and she said, I wish. For weeks, every time she saw her parents, she said, oh, please, 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 all I want is a pair of skates. She'd never been skating. And so on her birthday morning, she had that time, and you can wish with me, I wish, I wish, I wish. And she ran from her room down to the kitchen, and on the table was a box. And the box was just the right size for a pair of skates. It was just the right shape for a pair of skates. She lifted off the lid, and there they were, black and shiny with sparkling silver blades. And she started to put them on right there in the kitchen, and her mom said, Zimmer, stop! You can't wear your skates in the kitchen. You'll wreck the floor. Hurry up, eat your breakfast, and then you can run down to the arena to play with your friends. So Zimmer ate her cereal very fast. You can help me out with having a snack there too. Let's see. Yum, 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 yum. And she drank up all the milk. Glug, 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 glug. And then she grabbed a helmet and she grabbed her skates and she ran across town to the arena. And when she got there, her friends were waiting for her. And they said, Zimmer, oh, this is the best day ever. You finally have a pair of skates. Today, we're going to teach you how to play hockey. Did you guess that? And they were so excited, and they went into the changing area, and Zimmer put on her helmet really tight. And she put on her skates and she laced them up tight. And she walked over to the ice. She opened up the door. She put one foot onto the ice, and she started to wobble. She put the other foot on and she started to shake a little bit. She stood up. She was okay. But then her eyes got really wide and her nose started to twitch. And she went, achoo! And when she sneezed, fire shot out of her nose and melted a hole in the ice. And her friend said, Zimmer, you're sick. Go home. Look what you did. You wrecked it. Well, Zimmer took off her skates and she took off her helmet and she started to walk slowly home, dragging her tail behind her. When she got home, her mom said, Zimmer, why do you look so sad? Why are you here so soon? It's your birthday. You should be having fun with your friends. And she said, oh, Mom, I sneezed and fire shot out of my nose and melted the ice, and my friend said, you're sick. Go home. And she said, oh, dear. Are you feeling okay? Do you have a fever? And Zimmer said, no, Mom, I feel fine. I don't know why I sneezed. And her mom said, well, maybe you're getting a cold. we better make a big pot of chicken noodle soup. And they chopped up the onions and the celery and the chicken, and you can help me stir that all in. It started to smell so good. And the last thing they did was they poured in a great big package of noodles. Stir it up again. Zimmer loved chicken noodle soup. She ate up, slurping up, drinking up bowl after bowl of chicken noodle soup. She ate so much chicken noodle soup, she felt fantastic, healthy and strong. And her grandmother came over, and her grandmother said, if you feel like you are getting sick, you should eat raw garlic. And Zimmer said, oh, garlic? But she popped handfuls of raw garlic into her mouth. She barely even chewed. In a few days, she smelled a little bit like garlic toast, but she felt very strong and healthy. And she grabbed her helmet and she grabbed her skates and she ran back to the arena. When she got there, her friends were waiting again. Zimmer, you're back! This is so exciting! Today, we're going to teach you how to play hockey. That's right! Well, they put on their skates. Zimmer made sure her helmet was nice and tight. She stood up. She started to sway just a little bit. She walked across the cement. She got to the ice. She opened that door. She put one foot onto the ice. Ooh, almost slipped out from under her. She put the other foot on. She was able to go a little bit forward and a little bit back. Then her eyes got really wide again. And her nose started to twitch. And she went, achoo! And fire shot out of her nose again. And her friend said, Zimmer, you're still sick. Go home. And she said, I'm not sick. I don't know why I sneezed. And they said, well, you have to be sick. She said, look at all this ice. And they said, well, that's true. The whole arena was still nice and smooth, and the spot that had melted was very small. So they started to skate along the boards, but they didn't get very far when Zimmer's eyes got really wide again, and her nose started to twitch again, and she went, ah, 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 ah. And one of her friends grabbed her by the nose and dragged her back into the changing area and said, Zimmer, you're sick. Go home. And she said, I'm not sick. I don't know why I'm sneezing. And one of her friends said, I think you might have an allergy. Maybe you're allergic to the ice. And she said, I can't be allergic to the ice. It's just frozen water. I drink water every day. Our bodies are made up of 70% water. But then they thought about it and they thought, well, there must be something here that you're allergic to. So they started to sniff. They started to sniff all around the arena. The first thing they could smell smelled really yummy. They said, oh, Zimmer, do you smell that? And Zimmer said, oh, I smell that. That smells like French fries. And they said, Zimmer, are you allergic to French fries? And she said, no, I'm not allergic to French fries. I love it when my mom makes French fries. I like to dip them in ketchup and sometimes even mayonnaise. And her friend said, mayonnaise? She said, yeah, you should try it. It's really good. But they needed to sniff around a little bit more. They sniffed around and they opened one of the doors. And when they opened that door, this great big awful smell came out, and they looked in and they could see a pile of jerseys and socks and skates that really needed to go into a washing machine. And they said, Zimmer, are you allergic to the stinky, dirty hockey stuff? And she said, "No, it's disgusting." "But I'm not sneezing." And they thought about it and they thought, well, maybe it isn't an allergy. And they went back to the ice and they got back onto the ice. But as soon as they got back onto the ice, the big door at the back started to open up. And they heard some beeping and this great big machine came out. And as it came out, it was puffing great big puffs. Chug, 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 great big puffs of smoke. And as soon as that smoke started to puff through the air, Zimmer's eyes got really wide again, and her nose started to shake worse than it had ever shaken before. It was shaking so much, she went, ah, 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 ah. And her friend grabbed her by the nose again and dragged her outside the arena and said, "Zimmer, you must be allergic to the Zamboni." And she said, "Oh no. But that's okay then. They can get rid of the Zamboni and then I can play hockey." And they said, "No, Zimmer, if we don't have the Zamboni, nobody gets to play hockey. It's what keeps the ice nice and smooth and flat and safe for everybody to skate on. If you're allergic to the Zamboni, you're just going to have to go home. But it's okay because summer's only 6 months away and we'll teach you how to play baseball." Well, that didn't make Zimmer feel any better. She took off her helmet and she took off her skates and she started to walk home again, dragging her long scaly tail behind her, dragging her long snout in front of her. She got partway home when a little friend flew up and said, "Zimmer, Zimmer, Zimmer, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she said, "I'm allergic and I can't play hockey." And her friend said, "Well, why not? You can't be allergic to the ice. It's just frozen water." And Zimmer said, "I'm allergic to the Zamboni." And the little friend said, "We'll find a way. We'll find a way. We'll find a way for you to play." And she said, "It's impossible. I'm never going to be able to play hockey. I may as well just go and hibernate." And the little bird said, "I have an idea. I have an idea. I have an idea. Follow me." Well, Zimmer followed the little friend through town and right between some trees. And on the other side of the trees, there was a pond. And it had frozen as smooth as a glass. Well, Zimmer looked at the pond and she said, "That's too dangerous. I can't skate on there. If I sneeze in the middle of the pond, there's freezing cold water underneath. Somebody could get really hurt. It's not safe. I can't do it." And the little bird said, "Well, why don't you try by the edge? Try by the edge, try by the edge where it was very, very shallow. And then you'll know." So Zimmer put on her skates and she put on her helmet and she started to skate back and forth along the edge, right by where the beach was. And she fell down a few times and it was really hard, but she was trying so hard. And the little bird flew back to the arena and said, "Hey everybody, Zimmer's skating on the pond. We should go teach her how to play hockey." And so they brought the pucks and the net and a whole bunch of sticks and they taught Zimmer how to hold the stick and how to pass and how to skate forward and how to skate backwards. They taught her everything about hockey and she was so happy. And they played until the sun started to go down and the sky started to turn all pink and orange. And then they started to hear, "Hey kids, come home for supper." And all the kids were yelling back, "Oh Mom, just 10 more minutes." Well, Zimmer had the puck and Zimmer was skating forward and she could see that 2 of her friends were playing defense and 1 of her friends was playing in net. And she had that puck and she was getting closer and closer and then she heard, "Hey Zimmer, come home." And she said, "Oh Mom, just 5 more minutes." And she got closer and closer and closer and her friends were like a wall in front of the goal. She got closer and closer and then all of a sudden her eyes got really wide and her nose started to twitch and she went, "Ah, ah, 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 ah," and her friends jumped out of the way and she shot that puck right into the net. And her friend said, "Zimmer, no fair. What'd you do that for? You didn't even sneeze." a goal was her other birthday wish. And she said, I did it, I did it, I did it. And you know, a dragon has to have one good trick. And so that's the story of Zimmer. Now, I asked you to think about which two words gave me the idea for that story. Do you have a guess? The two words were dragon and skates. And when those two words came together, I was with a group of young people, and one of the boys said, "Dragons don't skate. That's impossible." And I asked the question, what if? What if a dragon wanted to play hockey? What if? And so that started out as a tiny, tiny, tiny idea in my imagination. And I added some memories and more imagination and more creativity, and that story grew and grew and grew. And now I've told that story all over Canada. And it started out with dragon and skates. So you see, you don't have to have a great big idea to start a story. Now, it didn't grow overnight. I've got something else to show you. And I don't know if you can see this very good, but this is something that kind of looks like the weed with the bead with the words on it. It's kind of hard. It has a little shaking sound. You might have a better guess if I put the little top on it. This is an acorn. And when we think about acorns, we often think about squirrels wanting to eat them for lunch. And some people actually open them up and they have a special recipe and they try to make flour out of them. But the main reason for an acorn is that it's a seed. It's not very big. It fits tightly in the palm of my hand. But it has possibilities. A tiny acorn has the possibility to grow and grow and grow. Way bigger than me. There's an oak tree in my front yard that reaches out its branches all the way across the yard, and it's taller than the house. It's beautiful, and it gives me so much shade in the summertime and so much beauty in the wintertime. And all of these wonderful acorns to remind me that something really small can grow into something very big and very beautiful. But just like having a word to start a story, sometimes it doesn't come as quickly as we want. It doesn't grow really fast like Jack's magic beanstalk and all the way up to the sky and just overnight. An acorn takes years to grow, and sometimes our stories take years and years. Sometimes the ideas come quickly. But we know by looking at a little acorn that something really small can grow into something really big and really beautiful. So I just want to leave you with one little piece of advice. And that advice is to keep your eyes and your ears and your nose and your mouth and your fingers open to explore the world all around you. Because there are stories everywhere. Sometimes we see something really strange when we're walking down the street. And I always keep a notebook so I keep track of those weird things. And then they give me ideas for stories later on. One day I was driving in my car and I heard a very strange noise. And I looked up and I could tell that part of the noise was coming from a city bus. But when the bus moved away, I could still hear another part of that noise. It was almost like a chord of music. And as the bus rolled forward, there was a young man walking down the street playing an accordion. And it was such an interesting sound that was made by the bus and the accordion sounds together. And that's sort of how stories come to me as well. Two strange things come together and make something wonderful, just like dragons and skates. So I have a challenge for you this summer. I want you to come up with your own story. And maybe you'll share it with your friends, maybe you'll share it with your librarian, maybe you'll share it with me on social media. I'm going to give you one word that I want you to grow into a story. Using your memory, using your imagination, just grow it. And that one word is tree. So look around, explore your space inside and out, and come up with your very own story. I'm so happy I got to spend this time with you today. I hope you have a fantastic summer. Enjoy all the programs at the library. I want to thank the Saskatchewan Library Association and SaskTel again for making sure that I get to come to you in this way. And I can't wait to come back to libraries all across the province and all across the country. Thanks for watching.